Okay, so we're looking at the second part of the test. Review, question number 5 on the back. Alright, so what we have here are, hopefully everybody recognizes these as vertical angles. And we know that vertical angles means that this angle here is going to be congruent to this one. This angle here will be congruent to that one. Alright, so what we have to do is solve for x and find the measure of DCE. So DCE, we are looking for the measure of this angle. Okay, vertical angles are congruent. So I'm going to show, I'm going to just put an A, C, B here. So I can see that angle A, C, B is going to be congruent to angle DCE. DCE. Okay, and then by substitution, I'm going to say 3x plus 10 equals 5x minus 8. And then I'm going to solve. So I'm going to subtract 3x from both sides. And that gives me 0 there. 10 equals 2x minus 8. And then I'm going to add the 8 to both sides. And I've got 18 equals 2x. Divide out the 2. X equaled 9. Okay, so that's just basic algebra there. Now, x equals 9, that tells us x, but it doesn't tell us the measure of this angle, DCE, that we have to find. So, since the measure of angle DCE equals 5x minus 8, I am going to take my value for x and plug it in. So 5, put the 9 there, multiply it, 45 minus 8, 37 degrees. So now the measure of angle DCE equals 37 degrees, and that's my answer. Okay, now make sure to make a note that when I am looking, like if this was a proof, if I'm looking at angle BACB is congruent to angle DCE, and I'm writing the angle portion of it here, but then I change it into the equation, that is using substitution. The move I made from here to here, if I were doing a proof, I would be writing substitution right here, which means I substituted the letters for the actual numbers. Okay, now looking at number 6, solve for x. So on this one, first thing I have to do, subtract 23 from both sides. 7x squared plus 23x minus 23 equals 0. Okay, so I'm going to use my slip and slide method. 7x squared plus 23x minus 23. Slip and slide tells me, oops, equals 0. That's what it has to be equal to factor and solve. So slip says, slip this 7, multiply it by the negative 23. So 7 times negative 23 equals negative 161. Okay, when I am looking at that number, now my new equation is x squared plus 23x minus 161 equals 0. So that's what I want to factor. Here, 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 and here. Okay, when I'm looking at this 161, I can't multiply it by 2 because it ends in a 1, so that's not an even number. I can't divide it by 3. I know that 150 divided by 3 is 50, but then there's 11 left over, and that doesn't go into 3 evenly. 4, it's not an even number, so it's not divisible by 4. 5, it's not a 0 at the end, so it's not divisible by 5. 6 doesn't work either. So this is not divisible by any of these numbers, and especially by a number. I mean, I could do 1 times 161, but that would not add up to 23, which it has to in the middle. So this is not possible. It's prime. Okay, now let's look at this one. Again, my first move, add 5 to both sides. X squared plus 6x plus 5 equals 0. Now, product and sum. Product 5, sum 6. There's no choice, it's prime. 1 times 5, 1 plus 5 equals 6. Those are the numbers that I need in order to get 1 times 5 gives me that, 1 plus 5 gives me the 6. So this is going to be x here and x here plus 1 plus 5. Okay, so I factored it, but it says solve. So now I'm going to take my two quantities over here. X plus 1 equals 0, and x plus 5 equals 0. Alright, going back to the first one, I'm solving for x, minus 1 to both sides, and hopefully now you are noticing the answer is always going to be the opposite. This is a positive 1, the answer will be a negative 1, because we're subtracting it from both sides. So again, over here, x will equal negative 5. Okay, so that is solving for x, just like we did on the quiz that we just took a few days ago. Okay, now we're going to do the same thing for these, and when we're doing this, we're figuring out that there is one that can't be factored, and that will be prime. So when I'm just looking at these, I want to just see, do I have common numbers in them? That does have a common number. There's 2 x's here, 1 there. So it's definitely factorable. And this, x squared minus 64, I've got a perfect square root here and a perfect square root there. So, product sum, x will go here, x will go there. What gives me a product of 64, but that middle term is 0, so they subtract out. Well, there's only one choice, additive inverses. Square root of 64 is 8. X plus 8, x minus 8. That means it's factorable. Okay, looking at this, this is a 1 in front of it because it's a coefficient. That's an 8. No common numbers there. There's no x here, like there was up here. So there is nothing in common here. This is definitely prime. So when there's nothing in common with both numbers, it's prime. Looking at this one, we see that we can slip and slide this over. That's going to give us x squared minus 15x minus 16. Clearly, negative 15, sum of negative 15, and a product of negative 16. When only a difference of 1, that means it's 1 times 16. So negative 16 times 1 will give me a product of negative 16. Negative 16 plus 1 will give me a sum of negative 15. So, and you want to get to where you do this enough that you notice those tricks. When there's only a difference of 1, that means it was multiplied by 1. So that's going to be minus 16, bigger number's negative because that's negative, and then plus 1. Factorable. Okay, so that makes that one our answer. Okay, you're going to see another video for the rest of the problems.